School Board. Everyone is here except for Matt Wormser, who can't be here because of travel. We do have one adjustment to the agenda where we will not be discussing 6.2, professional development release time. That was taken off the agenda based on the conversation we had at the CSSU level. Any other adjustments to the agenda?
No executive session, right?
And we won't have any executive session. So we have a couple members of the community here that want to speak, so feel free to have the floor right now.
Hi, yeah, I'm Doug Roby with Shelburne since '89. We're kind of here, myself and Blue Selman or Gene, to take a look at the most interested in the bond that was proposed for the school and did not pass, but primarily are interested in seeing whether we can provide any input, service to the town, as well as primarily to the facilities committee. My background is more general. Gene's is HVAC and controls, but we're concerned citizens that would like to see the next bond issue get approved and have the school fixed in a way that is what is being looked for. So we thought we may be able to provide some input and in some way, shape, or form help out the facilities committee.
Okay. Thanks. And also,
my name is Luce Hillman. I live in Shelburne also, and I'd like to ask a couple of questions of the board. And I'm interested in the bond also that did not pass. One of them is I'd like to have the committee look at facilities planning, and it seems like if we can move people into the trailers while we're doing construction, do we really need the trailers? Because more square footage is more maintenance cost and more cost over the years. So I'd like to just understand if that's necessary. I'd also like the board to consider for future budgets that we start a renewal fund. I work for the University of Vermont. I'm Assistant Director of Engineering and Projects for physical plants, so I deal with deferred maintenance on buildings at UVM. And we have a renewal fund that we set aside in our newer buildings every year so that in 10 years you can replace a roof and you don't need to go out for these large bonds. You can actually pick away at your deferred maintenance. And I know that's hard, tight budgets, but then you could do the roof in pieces, not necessarily do all of the roof. You could stage it depending on the age of your roof. So that's kind of my comments, and also here to help if the committee needs any help.
great. Thank you. All right. So with that, we'll move on to 4.0, presentations and personal learning plans. Well, I will say that a lot of what you guys have just brought up, we'll discuss as part of our discussion during, what is this, 6.5, and in section 6, we'll have a long conversation about that, so we'll probably come up with this. So now we'll go to Alan, you ready?
We're patiently waiting for it to set up Shep's personal desktop. So, yeah.
Rachel, we haven't seen you in 2 years, and we see you twice in 2 in a row. This is great. How did the PTO meeting go? Was that,
good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good.
Everything went well. Very small group.
Oh, yeah.
Only
end
about
of the year.
8 people there. So.
It's the end of the year. It's warm out. It's not raining.
What can I do?
Staying light there.
We could shift the agenda and just do principals report while this is loading.
Okay.
Can we do that?
Appropriate?
Yeah.
That's the next on the agenda. We get this set up and be ready to go rather than walking years then.
If you want one, I do make copies. Feel free to tell me not to make copies if you don't want us to kill another tree, but
It's fine.
there might be a couple too for you folks if you'd like one. All right. Do you want to do a section? Do you want me to?
Reports over
You
there.
have an A on anything?
Here, let me throw
Pass
it
it along. I've
Well,
got it
he's
online.
got them right there.
There's
A
an A
He's got 'em
here.
all.
Tim has a.
And how about if you just start at A, and then I think you can work your way down from there, okay?
Okay.
And I'll do the top. All right. Okay, so we'll go ahead with the principal's report. Wanted to highlight the last of our grand rounds for this year. It was John Madden's presentation. It was a math night for parents and guardians, and we had a really robust turnout. About 40 people attended. Always want to put in a plug for those people who come kind of over and above their work assignment. Patty Paz and Carol Specht, who are two of our math interventionists, they attended that evening and helped parents as they were trying to solve problems. And we thank Becky Mashik, who is our food service director, for the great soup and salad supper that she always provides, and part two for babysitting services. So that's all great. I just wanted to point out the quote. We did exit tickets after the evening was over, and one of the quotes from someone who attended, "The concept of disequilibrium has also opened up a learning perspective for my own learning professionally. I look forward to applying concepts taught tonight for my kids and for my own learning too." So I thought that was interesting that that person took it to an adult learning level. Snelling Playground update. I'm not going to talk a lot about that because I have a presentation for you this evening, so I'll go ahead and just wait until that point if that's okay. And then kindergarten registration orientation took place last week. We had 2.5 days filled with new-to-be kindergartners who will arrive in the fall. 79 students were signed up. At this time last year it was 78, so we feel pretty good about the numbers as far as having our 5 teachers who will be teaching kindergarten for next year. And our Student Leadership Council, that's our 5th graders. We have 8 5th graders who are kind of elected from our 2 from each team on the 5th grade teams. And they do a lot of great work, and so I just kind of wanted to highlight them because they don't do really glitzy work necessarily, but they do a lot of that kind of, you know, just solid work. They have written articles for the Shelburne News in support of our bond. They build picnic tables, at least 1 per year that we put out by our playground. They had some great writing opportunities to try to persuade me to have chocolate milk in our cafeteria, again, the true moo variety, and to have real maple syrup. They actually put a proposal together that they offered to PTO for a PTO grant last week for the PTO grants that we did. So that was kind of cute. And they raised quite a bit of money for blankets that will be made for the COTS group. So I wanted to just highlight some of their activities. They did have a social a couple of weeks ago, and John Madden got a pie in the face. So what more can you ask for a nice topping to a year? It's all yours, Alan.
Okay, and if you are not otherwise engaged, we want to invite you Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from 12:30 to 1:30. We're going to have our first ever full middle school poetry slam. Carly Bent's been taking the lead on that. She's partnered with the Flynn Theater, had one of their specialists come over, work with the kids in terms of writing poetry, how to present it, and how to be slam masters. And I'll be honest, I'm throwing a lot of things out that I have no idea what that means.
Say, what does that mean?
Come and enjoy a poetry celebration. Each team is going to be having a celebration Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to wrap up their poetry units. So we'll report back what a slam really is.
Yeah.
And then SBAC continues to go really well. I can report that we are within 4 students of being completely done at the 4th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and then our 3rd and our 5th are moving through, and really has gone from a heightened level of concern, going, how are we ever going to be able to manage this, what's going to happen, to literally the experience we've been sharing is a week ago we had a wave of sickness go through a team, and I came in on Friday morning, we had 3 subs there, and I walked out of the team going, hey, what do you need us to do? And Eric Brunvan just looks at me and says, no sweat, we got this, no problem. They just ran it. Feedback from the kids is the tests are challenging, but they enjoy it more than the paper version, and you know, we'll see what the results come out. You know, of course, that's all an experiment, but you know, in terms of the implementation, it's been a success, I would say. So CVU had their first round of it today with their juniors, and everybody's kind of working through it in their own way. But, yeah, that's kind of our SBAC feedback for you.
And our enrollment is, oh, I put my thing away. It's pretty much stable, right? I think our enrollment's, yep, we're down 2 students this month, so 758. All right, how we doing? Oh,
Okay.
good,
Yeah, I
good.
think we
We're
got it.
there, all right. Just in time, look at that.
All right, so now we'll go back.
So now we'll
Perfect.
go back.
So now we'll go back to the presentation.
Yep, so this is a follow-up to the, let's see, oh, just let it go. So you had a presentation from Molly during the common topic about performance-based graduation requirements and PLPs, which is the acronym for personalized learning plans. And so what we've been asked to do is kind of follow that up and talk to you about locally what's happening with PLPs. We do have a handout for you which we'll reference, but it's really more information is really what it is. Just got some copies for members of the audience if you want to. There you go. All right. And thank you to Rachel for coming over and continuing your presence.
Being here,
at
yeah,
our meeting.
we're
So-
loving it. We're loving it.
Absolutely, no
All
problem.
right.
All right,
So
you ready?
Patty's gonna lead off.
All right, so I'm leading off basically to let you know I have been part of it's called the Proficiency-Based Graduation Requirements Committee, and it's made up of CSSU and all the 5 schools contributing about 2 or 3 members to this big group that goes a couple of days a month to learn about personalized learning. I don't know how many of you were at Common Topic, I'm sorry, because I was at the PTO meeting, but you probably heard from them at our Common Topic. So Act 77 is the law that, as we state up there, has to do with personalized learning plans. And I think Mr. Alderman said it well when he talked about the fact that these plans, which kind of sit under the umbrella of personalized learning, so they're one part, they're a tool as part of PBGRs. So proficiency, flexibility, and personalization are really what we're focusing on. And although it's a law, we really want to say that the AOE has done a really nice job of putting all this information together, and we feel like we're working as a team with them. So it's kind of a nice thing to feel as though the state and all of our local schools are working as a team. So under our core understandings, as we said, it's personalized learning. It's something that we feel we've been doing for a long time. It's really good teaching. And the work that we've done on effective schools is just this is one part of what effective schools are all about. It completely aligns with all of the goals that we have been working on for the last years. And the common outcomes are really important because we're looking at it as all of us are working together in our individual schools toward these common goals, and that's really important as our children are all going to the same high school. So they all need to have they need to realize those same goals. And I'm always pretty proud when I sit and listen to all the other schools talking about personalized learning because I think Shelburne Community School is really ahead of the curve, and I think Alan and Rachel have done a really nice job of listening to all of this good information and really understanding how to move forward. And so I just think we're in a really good place, so.
All right, so I'm gonna take this next slide, and if you look at your handout, this kind of references back to the presentation that Katie Tyler, the K-4 school counselor, and I did last month. We talked about American School Counseling Association and the mindset and behavior standards for student success. And you've heard a lot about behavior, I think even the month before in February.
February, March,
yes,
yep.
around how, that's how our social worker works and how our behavior works. And this is all somewhat tied to this. But what we did was looking at the ASCA standards, which is how we align what we do and align them with personalized learning plans. So you can see if you look at the slide, like mindset number 2, that's under standard number 2 under mindset standards, that personalized learning plans will help students in building their self-confidence, in, mindset standard number 4, understanding that what this is all about is about lifelong learning and moving forward and thinking ahead, helping students to believe that they can use their abilities to be the best that they can be, and having a positive attitude. We also we're looking at personalized learning plans and the behavior standards, which are spread into 3 different categories, into learning standards, learning strategies, self-management skills, and social skills. And so really, as Patty mentioned, helping students think about long-term as well as short-term academic, career, and social emotional goals, which is what we're going to be doing next year. Yeah, and which we've been doing for a long time is that goal setting piece. And again, this is just really a way to to formalize it and to also have a real dialogue with families and also engaging the community as well. Okay.
Did you want me to take the elements?
Oh, yeah, were you going to do, I think you were going to do the next 2. Yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of what is supposed to be in a PLP, and again, the Law Act 77 didn't necessarily define it. It has defined that we will move towards personalized learning, but the AOE has come out and given us some guidance that said, okay, this is what we expect in a middle level PLP. And then the CSSU counselors have gotten together. Rachel's been a real leader in that work to make sure that we're consistent with Williston and Charlotte and Heinsberg. Since we all feed into CVU, it makes sense that these personalized learning plans have to be aligned, otherwise we create chaos here for the freshman year. So they've been aligned, we've come to agreement that what there has to be in it is elements where students will identify their strengths, their abilities, and their skills. That makes sense. I mean, a lot of this is really logical, educational understanding. If we can understand what you're good at, what skills or what your weaknesses are, we can better define what your educational plan should be at Shelburne. What are your core principles? What do you value? What's important to you? What do you stand for? And for things like that, we're looking at some of the characteristics, such as the math habits of mind that you've heard John Madden talk about. Are we that we're focused a whole lot more on the social emotional aspects of persistence, of empathy for fellow man, of caring for your environment? That's the types of things we're talking about that young people start to get passionate about and that make them citizens, effective citizens of the world in our community. We'll do some learning styles inventories. Again, not everybody learns the same, and we want to know that. So built into it will be some inventories that we'll give and some interests, kind of leading to college and career interests, although that really comes in more of the high school level. And then ultimately what it comes down to is you take those individual first parts and you define goals and action steps, and you review them in a cyclical nature. So there's a relationship where the teacher's involved, the family's involved, the student's involved, and we create these goals and we review them. Are we on progress? What's the data? What's the evidence that we're making progress? Okay, let's go back, make some new goals. When we talk about the fact that we're not feeling like it's radically new, we do a lot of this. When we really get it right with young people, this is what we should be doing anyways. Mm-hmm. It's more formalizing it.
What is co-curricular?
Co-curricular would be what your interests are outside of school. Not necessarily, so it could
Chess
be
club.
Athletic interests, it could be
Lego
everything
robotics.
from, what are those other aspirations that maybe don't necessarily happen within school? Mm-hmm. And then long and short-term goals. And the key last there is, this is not just a document that's meant to live at school. We really think this really is going to support one of our AYP goals that we've talked about, which is that home-school connection. Mm-hmm. Well, what better way to be connected about than what the young people are coming to school and what they're passionate about? We should have the parents involved in that conversation. So again, it's one of these tools we look and say, this makes sense. Thank you for kind of pushing us in that direction to kind of prime us to do some of the structures we need to be doing. So this is what we've got going right now. Now the law says we will have PLPs in place for 7th graders, current 6th graders, 7th graders, as of November of next year. That's what the law says.
November 15th.
Mm-hmm.
November.
Next school.
Next
Yeah,
school year.
next school year. We've been talking, when I did my math, this is our 7th month we've been talking about this already as a school staff. We started in the fall. This is not a new law. We've known it's coming. And so a number of pieces are underway. One of them is we decided to start with those core values and core principles. Those seem to be really foundational to help young people understand. So we've teamed with the Ryan Hawks Foundation. Some of you may be familiar with Ryan Hawks, who was a freestyle skier from Burlington who unfortunately passed away in a tragic accident. And later, as they were going through his computer, they discovered he'd created a list of 20 core values. Now you can see them on posters and things. And the Hawks Foundation was created to kind of promote helping young people understand the importance of core values. So we've had Ryan's dad, Peter Hawks, come in. They have a fellow who's working with them, who is John Painter, who's a teacher from South Burlington. They've come in. They've already had sessions with our current 6th graders, working with Rachel, and 3 of our social studies teachers to kind of explain what core values are, talk about Ryan's core values, talk about where you could even find these, how to have conversations with your parents or other community members about it. And it's culminating here in the next couple weeks with, they will write their core values. And then that will become the first piece of their PLP that will move with them. We'll continue it with our 7th graders at the end of the year. So those 2 pieces we'll already have in place, and John Madden, through our 5th grade SLC, that was actually how we learned about this. John Madden is friends with John Painter, who's the fellow with Ryan Hawks Foundation, and he just they got talking and said, we should do this with our Student Leadership Council, and they had such a success with it. John came and said, we should really explore this because this is PLP work. Now it's something that I think we're going to get, Heinsberg and Charlotte and Williston real excited about, because it just is making sense for us as the foundation to get the PLPs off the ground. We've also done some goal setting. Specifically, it's been targeted in our Arts and Citizenship program that you might have heard about. Used to be called Community Service. Now we've broadened that, where it goes in 3 cycles, where we have our 8th graders every year. They have 1 cycle where they define a community service project, and they spend about 10 weeks in either one that they've designed, or we have opportunities for students to go to the arbors, go to classrooms, go write for the Shelburne News, and then they write a culminating project that comes out of that. We have students who work with 2 of our art teachers and 1 of our music teachers defining an independent arts project. How can they express something they really care about through the arts? And then we also have the students who go to the craft school and demonstrate that they can learn something that they've never had the opportunity to learn relatively independently. So maybe that's woodworking, pottery on the wheel. Some of you have probably seen those displays as you walk through the Sea Wing over the last little bit of time. And so we're going to be real intentional now of linking the goal setting and even our core values to what's the work you're doing. Yes, if that's your core value, how can you express that during your community service time? We see that just as a natural expression of what PLPs should really be about. And then our 8th graders right now, this has been going on for a while, that at the end of their 8th grade year, they write an essay, a Who Am I essay, with their English teachers, which is their first introduction to their high school language arts teachers in the core. And their job is to, in an essay, just simply, who are you as a learner, what should the school know, and what do you bring to the table to contribute to the CVU community? So again, that's going to be their first component that all the 8th graders in the SU do, and when they open up their PLP, that's going to be the first thing that will be there for freshmen next year. And then we have our Naviance platform, which we can talk a little bit about, which is the computer program that we'll use to house all of this data going forward.
Tool.
Yeah. So this is, Naviance is the tool that Chittenden South has used at the high school for quite some time in terms of helping students to schedule their courses, to look at colleges, and for students who maybe aren't going to college, maybe they're taking a gap year or looking at careers. And what ended up happening is Naviance ended up partnering with VSAC and made Naviance available and I guess meaningful for this process for K-8 as well. So I just did a couple of screenshots just so you could get an idea of what it would look like if you were looking at your child or your student's PLP and going through Naviance. So this is what you would see, whether your student was at CVU or at Williston or at Shelburne Community School. You would see these tabs across the top, and you might see, oh, school counselor assigned some certain tasks that you need to accomplish. And these are the tasks that all students in Chittenden South, and actually in the state of Vermont, will be created. There are some critical elements and tasks that are required. If we go to the next screen, if you were to go to the About Me tab, that's where you would find where PLPs will be housed, where students would then, those tasks that were on that last slide, they would be found here, as well as where students would set their goals. This is also where an e-portfolio, electronic portfolio, would be housed as well. So these are some of the areas, again, just to give you an idea. Uploading a journal entry, like the Who Am I journal entry that the 8th graders will be doing, that would be housed here and under journals. So just gives you an idea of what Naviance, this technology, looks like.
What would be in a portfolio?
So there'll be lots of things in a portfolio. PLP would be part of the portfolio. It would be all of the evidence that shows a student is meeting the standards. So that's like the electronic portfolio. And so instead of maybe a student would have, like right now you'd see a paper portfolio with all the evidence, actually now you would see it electronically.
Right.
Yeah.
How they're meeting the standards.
Mhm.
Yeah, the other element of Act 77 is that by 2020, students will graduate not based on credits, but by evidence of performance against certain proficiencies. So it will be demonstrated evidence. And so even in the elementary school, we'll start collecting that evidence of growth as we define the standards and move towards standards-based learning that you've probably heard a little bit about. You know, where the portfolio is really going to work is, here's the standard we're trying to achieve. The portfolio is going to be the evidence and just the evidence of the growth of it. We know what it's going to look like, but in terms of the electronic ways to manage this across the system, we're 2 or 3 years away from that, because it's going to be increasingly complex. That's a lot of data to be able to sort and keep track of. But CVU is a real leader in that, actually, in the state, in terms of pulling those pieces together and having the standards-based systems to monitor it, so that it's not so much what I did in biology class or social studies class or even PE. It is, what's all the things that I did that relate to this standard? And there will probably be evidence from all those classes.
From kindergarten through 12?
Potentially from
Eventually.
kindergarten all the way up.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Yep. The
It's
goal.
exciting work, overwhelming work.
And these are to be managed, by the way, by students.
By students.
Yeah, Bob?
This is standards-based learning, and we've got the mindset standards, and the behavioral standards. What about the academic standards?
Absolutely, and that, we go and look at things like the Common Core standards and unpacking those and identifying what does proficiency look like for writing.
Right.
That's also very much becoming an element of PLP. But as I'll show you kind of here in a second, our plan is to roll that out slowly and logically and get it in a system, because we can't chew it all at once. We really can't. It's a matter of teaching students how
You
to.
build the behaviors first before you're going to introduce the academic
To a point,
standards.
we're going to choose, actually what we've chosen is writing, and we're going to tackle writing first and get writing figured out, because it's one of those cross-cutting concepts that we can write in every single academic area. And so if we're clear about what writing should look like and what we want to do, then art can contribute to it, history can contribute to it, math can contribute to it. And if we can get that system worked out in a way that students know how to put the writing up there, teachers know how to evaluate the writing, then I think science, math, and those become much easier, because we've all learned the system, and then we can all learn our individual parts. So it's a 3 to 10 year process, really. A slow rollout to kind of make sure that we do it in a way that makes sense, rather than having be one of, we do not want a PLP to be a binder that sits in that filing cabinet over there. What a waste of time. If it's going to drive student learning and make us better at what we do, and we believe it truly can.
The first slide looked a lot like an annual performance review. It's good that you're getting Seventh graders in on that.
There you go.
Maybe they'll appreciate it by the time they're finished.
Maybe.
And they'll feel so much more comfortable, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All right,
Here's the-
yeah, this next slide is just really, again, those required tasks that students would have to do. And you could just see what, students would be able to open up the tasks that are assigned to them, what they need to currently work on, what's coming up, what's on the horizon, and also, Naviance is this platform this technology that allows kids to create to-do lists. There's their goal setting. So there's lots, it allows for lots of opportunity for kids to be able to house all of their goals and the things they need to accomplish in one place, and a place for parents and teachers to be able to access as well.
I mean, are the goals are they sort of adjusted for for lack of a better word, the age of the kid?
Absolutely,
I mean, 'cause
absolutely.
they're going to be steps to college, but then
They
things
create
to-
their goals.
They create their goals, yes.
Yeah, it's not a drop down. But are there things, if they really need some help, are there methods they can go through to find those steps along the way?
Absolutely. I mean, all of our kids actually create SMART goals, so they
Okay.
already know how to do that. And I don't know, elementary school, they
Yeah.
start working
Oh,
on
they do
SMART
it in
goals.
kindergarten.
Yeah,
They create
so,
goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So it's all
in
very
terms of-
age appropriate.
Mhm.
I had someone tell me in 4th grade that they wanted to be a Supreme Court justice.
Uh-huh.
I told them they need to break that down into a few.
Yeah.
Few steps, yes.
Yeah. Just
Yes.
a few steps on the way
Yes.
there.
Well, and this process will help them do that.
Good.
Yes.
Did you know that person?
I didn't know that person.
Yeah.
That's true.
And lastly, I just pulled up just a screenshot. It's again, these aren't done. This is just a mock student that I created. If you were to go to her electronic portfolio, the tabs you'd be able to pull down. And again, it was just really just to give you an idea of this Naviance platform, to get an idea of what we're using around Chittenden South, and how this again follows students from middle, but eventually from elementary, middle, high school, college, and beyond is really the goal. Actually talking to the CVU counselors, they have students who want to access their, be able to use Naviance for their planning in college and beyond. So, I mean, that's, to hear that is really exciting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the piece that I really want to highlight is the amount of work that Rachel has done, because she'll point out that, you're right, we don't have students here, but in 3 weeks we will. In 3 weeks, every 7th grader in our school will have their first elements of the PLP. And
They're all in there. They're actually all in there. They're all logged in Naviance right now. They don't know that yet.
No other school counselor has dared to tackle them.
They don't know they're in there.
So,
But
yeah.
CVU uses it now, all.
They've been using it for many years, actually. Yeah, I don't even know how many years, but they're
For a while,
15,
yeah.
It houses
15
their
years.
transcripts, it houses,
Right.
yeah, it really is
And
their
I mean,
codes
they're
of communication.
evolving into using it for personalized learning, but
as
the
well.
structure itself and how kids log in and get their schedule has
Right.
been there for a while.
And so it just made sense as an SU to also use Naviance, and again, especially with the partnership with VSAC and all of the work that they do and around careers and college readiness, and they created surveys, so it made things a lot easier in terms of meeting the critical elements.
And so, kind of next steps, what we wanted to highlight here is just some work, because I said this conversation's been going on for about 7 months. And it has really energized specifically the middle school staff in terms of how are we gonna do this? Because it really did fall on the shoulders of, we'd like to see PLPs, but it's gotta start with 7th grade. And when you start thinking PLPs, you start thinking, oh my, how are we gonna track this? How are we gonna get the standards? How are we gonna have this consistency across our 3 teams? How are we gonna define what those standards are? How are we gonna report out on it? The layers are huge, and I'd take you to the last page of your handout, which is the work that a middle school leadership team has done, giving ourselves 3 years of goals. And so this is a commitment that they made, saying that, well, by 2018, 3 years from now, 3 school years from now, we will be standards-based. We will have the assessments, we'll be ready to report. We're gonna figure out how to do it in every one of our subject areas. That's a huge piece of work by itself. And oh, by the way, it's not gonna happen without technology, because students are going to need to be able to access their their PLPs, their portfolios. If it's required a teacher to keep track of, it's just not going to be manageable with 270 kids. So students are going to have to own this. So how are we going to embed the technology in a way that every student has access to technology every day in every class to really support the work? And that led to conversations with the group called Tarrant. I don't know if you're familiar with Tarrant. It's part of the middle level program at UVM. It's a specific institute for innovative education, and they've been partnering with middle schools around the state for about 3 years now. They just got a new $5 million grant, and they're seeking partner schools. What they partner with is they specialize in the professional development of how to do this. How do you make a PLP? How do you make an e-portfolio? How do you really integrate technology? If you're really going to give students a computer, how do we make them appropriate digital citizens rather than just giving them a tool and saying, figure it out? We know we've got huge issues to tackle there. And so the staff said, let's see if they'll partner with us. And we're about that far away from their being willing to partner with us. Our big challenges are, their research says that to be an effective professional development model, they need 50 to 60 hours of professional development with every teacher every year. And so what they're asking us to do is to find how can we do that. Okay. We were a big push behind the movement for early release. We recognize that's going to happen. I'll make the pitch right now that we'd like that conversation to continue, because we can probably, we have a model that we can get through the next year and give our teachers 50 to 60 hours of professional development that will help our initial goals happen. But if we want to do all of this in the next 3 years, we've got to find a sustainable model, and districts around the state, whether it's South Burlington or the Essex of the world, they're using early release because it really gives our teachers the time to do the work they need to do.
Elaine mentioned that in the CSSU board meeting, and
Okay.
that's what's behind her thinking about this release time for this professional development. for
It's
this
one of the,
board.
one of the many pieces.
Just for
Exactly.
professional development,
Yep.
because all our systems are having this conversation
Correct.
of how to do PLPs, how to do that, how to move that forward. And so, these are the pieces. And so we're kind of waiting to get a calendar approved, because with a calendar we can go back to Tarrant and look and say, here's the days that we commit, that we have your staff come in and work with our staff to help us. Our first year is going to be get our PLP system figured out, and we do plan to have computers available for every middle school student next year. We've got the ability to do that with our budget. Fortunately, Chromebooks have dropped significantly in price, so we can do that. But we've got a lot of work to do on how to make that manageable, and how do our teachers take advantage of that tool. So that, the piece that we have is we have 15 teachers that have committed 5 weeks of their summer to go to what's called the Middle Grades Institute, which is put on by Tarrant. And that's going to be the work we're going to do there this summer, is to get those pieces figured out, because they're excited about this work, and those are our targets for next year to get figured out. So, and it all grows from PLPs. That's what
5 weeks or 5 days?
5 days.
Okay.
Did I say 5 weeks?
Wow, that would be a
That'd
long
be a long
professional
Weeks would be a
development.
big commitment.
That's good.
5 days is a huge
5 days is
summer
a big commitment.
So, it's exciting work. If I haven't portrayed that to you, that we're excited about it, I haven't done my job. But it's also kind of like looking at a fire hose and saying, start drinking. And so, how do we keep it all in balance? So.
I did have a question, but it deals with security and backup of this system. If my kid has all of his records and stuff in here, you'd like to know that it's really secure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't answer that question, but I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I know that CVU has, that question's come up because CVU uses Naviance, and my understanding that it is a secure platform. Naviance is used all over the United States. It's a huge program under the huge technology. The main company is called Hobson's, and so my understanding it is very secure. There haven't been any breaches that has happened to CVU. So
Mhm.
Yeah, that we're aware of. Good question.
Mhm.
Any
All
other
right.
questions?
Any other questions for us?
A lot,
All right.
a lot of info.
PLPs make a little bit more sense than they did 3 hours ago?
Now, there are some students who are very excited about it.
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard that? Good, I'm
That's
glad to
good.
hear that, because we've been doing a
That's
lot of
good.
work with the current sixth grade and talking about it, so fantastic.
Great.
That's good.
Great news.
All right.
All right.
Thanks so
Okay.
much, Rachel.
Thank
Really
you,
appreciate your
Rachel.
time.
Welcome.
Thanks, Rachel.
See you tomorrow.
So for, move on to 5.2, which is the CSSU debrief, because we already did the principal report. I thought our meeting today was pretty simple.
Yep, sure.
It was pretty short. The one thing, not so sure, you weren't there, Alan, but, you know, we're not gonna move forward this year with early release times. You're aware?
We knew that.
Okay, I wasn't sure the way you said that.
Yeah, no, we're fully aware and we have a model going forward, but that was our pitch saying.
We'd like you to
really
consider.
like to have that
Yeah,
conversation.
So-
Moving forward.
So I kind
Really
of,
like you to
I
consider.
mean, I wasn't involved, there were two aspects that Elaine talked about at the meeting. And, you know, the one aspect was the board chairs meeting, which I don't even know how much of the, I assumed that we were gonna have this conversation today in our meeting, so I don't know how much you guys know about this, but I think that the concept of, you know, leaving at 1 and then doing professional development.
I did just log off. I gotta make it shut. I
Just
apologize.
every week.
So every other week, we would have,
Yourself off and I was
from
gonna-
1 to 3,
Okay.
teachers would have
Okay.
professional development
All right,
at
thank you.
school.
Sorry.
And the kids would be released early and, you know, go to after-school activities or home or something like that. And I totally get the need
Twice a
for.
month, right?
Twice a
Twice a
month.
month. Mhm.
The need for professional development. I think there was something out there for 2 of the full days, might possibly go back on the calendar as full instruction. 2 of the full days of professional development would go back as school days, student days.
I think so.
And I just think like, if we're gonna roll this out, we need to roll it out in advance of the calendar. So we're gonna have this committee that's gonna review
Great.
how this is gonna go forward, but, like, parents need to know that they need to plan for that.
Sure, yep.
Totally understand that. And then the thing that, I asked a couple people, and the thing that came up was, so if I am losing, I think the number was 39 hours of instruction for the kids, but I'm only getting 14 back for those 2 full days, you know, parents are gonna make that jump of 14 versus
Okay, yeah.
39. So how do we address that?
Yep, that's a good question.
In
Mhm.
that sense.
Mhm.
So, you know, I get it, I understand it's harder, but I think it's gotta be laid out carefully to the
Mhm.
public, cause I know how they're gonna react, and it's gonna be more severe than me doing the math of 39 minus 14.
Yep.
And I understand those issues, and
Yeah, I
you know
totally,
what I'm talking about.
yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Yeah.
So, do you guys understand a little bit of what they're proposing?
Well, it's sort of like an investment. I mean, you're investing in the professional development so that ultimately the delivery of the education will be done that much more efficiently to
That's
the
correct.
children.
Mhm.
That's correct.
And make the teachers more effective.
Yeah.
I think, if I might speak, just one of the big selling points as far as we're concerned is just, there's a more timely cycle to it, because if you learn something here, and then a month and a half goes by or 2 months goes by until then you provide feedback about your learning, that's a long period of time as opposed to a couple of weeks. Then you provide that feedback, and you can see where that cycle is just much more rigorous and richer for our learning, so, as teachers, so.
Good. And that was kind of all we did for, we didn't even talk about that on CSSU, but we took it out, so I wanted to make sure you guys knew about it. Nothing else was really, there was a lot of bookkeeping relative to the new budget and for special ed, for
Oops.
benefits and things like that, so, yeah, that's fine. You guys have any other ads for the, no? Okay, so, let me go back to,
I'll email it to you right now.
So then, unfortunately, Matt's not here for we'll move on to 6.0 discussion matters, and Matt's not here to give us his review notes on.
Oh, the policy?
Policy.
Oh, he's our policy.
Oh.
You guys.
Good. So, those were pretty straightforward. Any comments on the 6.1 policies that were up there?
No.
No? Okay. 6.2, we just talked about that. Professional development release time. 6.3, Board's Corner. I know Patty and I had a short conversation during the planning meeting that maybe our next Board's Corner should be a thing about the playground, which we'll get some more information, which is next. So rather than talk about what we can talk about, we can go to 6.4 as soon as this is up.
Yeah.
If we could all look at Alan's.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I just bounce quickly.
There you
You can
go.
see all of Alan's
Yeah.
email. And then on television,
It's
no
funny, I
less.
got that VRBO email today.
Oops.
I hate it when that happens. I do it all the time.
Right.
I did it today.
Did you?
You did just mail it to me?
I did mail it. You want me to try again? I did just mail it to you.
I am so afraid.
Everybody close your eyes.
Everyone close your, yeah.
No.
Close your eyes.
Okay.
Oh, shoot, it's not coming? Here, you want me to try it again?
It takes a while. sometimes.
There it
Is
is.
it there? Yeah.
There we
There
go.
we go.
You can all look at Patty's. Okay. Thank you. This is
I'm
why I
sorry.
would tear it to provide you with professional development stuff.
There you go.
You get
There you
screwed
go.
around these moments.
I know, I feel the same way. Don't worry, I'm gonna piggyback on that learning.
That's right, you have to learn function F6, isn't
F6? What's
it?
F6?
Doesn't work on an Apple.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say it's a light on mine.
Okay, do you want me to drive that?
All right, do you mind?
No.
That would be great, thanks, Alan. So, as everyone just said, this is a presentation regarding our Snelling Community Park and Playground. And I just wanted to acknowledge, and I will in a minute, but Lisa Williams and Barb Como, our parent volunteers, did put this together, and then I kind of amended it for tonight's presentation, so. Just a picture of the existing playground. You've seen this before, a little bit of history. I'm not sure if everyone's seen it, but just a reminder that we did combine our schools in 1994, and a volunteer effort came together to create what is now the Snelling Playground. And we thank Richard and Barbara Snelling for their contribution. And it is used, it's the one playground that's used by all of the students in our school at some point in time during the day. So the 770 students use it at some point in time. And why are we talking about the playground right now? So we had an inspection by an insurance company about a year and a half ago or so, and they suggested some changes to the existing structure. It's a wooden structure. It had been there for 20, or it has been there for 20 years, and it's been there long enough that we need to make some changes to it. So we had a public forum, and a committee was established. Again, I think it was about 14 or so months ago, and the two consistent people who have been on that committee all this time are Lisa Williams and Barb Como. We've had many other people, too numerous to mention really, who've kind of come and gone through different phases of this project. And I did want to acknowledge that Dave Kelly has done a great job in making sure that we have facts and figures and know what our parameters are. So the goals are to replace the existing equipment and to improve our ADA accessibility and have an inclusive environment. Right now, our playground is not completely ADA accessible, and once we put a new structure in there, we will need to do that. We want to meet the needs of a multi-generational community, which is what Shelburne is, and create a plan that serves basically all of our community members, both school and town. So these are just a couple of pictures of what would be part of the new playground, so just kind of look at them. There's another one, Alan. The web climber is what our 5th graders last year had asked us to put.
And a zip line. They did want a zip line.
They wanted a zip line also. They didn't get their zip line, but they are getting their web climber. So, yeah, they are awesome.
Great.
Yeah. You can see all of us out there at the end of the day on it. So just to let you know, so that was playground equipment. So what I've tried to do is segment this. So What happened is back in December, we awarded the bid to Pettinelli and Associates for the 101-154, which was to change out that structure. And $100,000 you allocated from our construction fund to use for that, and our PTO also contributed $5,000 at the time. We are actually ordering the equipment. I just talked to Lisa, and I think like this week she's ordering the equipment. She's really excited because it's been there's been a number of changes. Any unused funds from that obviously will then be spent in kind of phase 2, which is the site work. And we do have a volunteer build that we'll be doing to install the playground. It's either going to be July 18th or July 25th. They're both Saturdays. And right now there is a fundraiser flyer going out. I thought I had one right here. Well, I won't be able to find it, but here it is. And we've asked people not only to donate to the cause, but also to determine which one of those dates works best, because we'll need a fairly good-sized number of people to help us. And the swings that we're taking down from that playground, we are going to install with Dave Kelly's blessing on the School Street Playground, which is on the other side of the building. So this is the concept plan of the footprint of what will exist, hopefully, in 6 months or so. Oh, I'm sorry, can we go back, because I'm sorry, but I did want to acknowledge Jeff Hodgson, who works for Wagner Hodgson Landscape Architects, and Dave Marshall, the civil engineer, have done so much work on this project pro bono. So I just wanted to acknowledge their wonderful work that they've done, and thank them.
What's the footprint of the current playground?
Yeah, I'll show you.
So,
I'll show you.
awesome, thanks,
Yeah.
Dave.
So the current, here's the gazebo that's out there right now.
Yep.
So the current playground basically is a square that's right about
Yep.
through here.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit bigger.
Yeah,
but
a little.
You know, here's,
You can
like
see
that
the
park
line,
bench is
there's kind
right-
of a line that,
is it this guy right here?
yeah, well,
Okay.
that's an actual
But-
structure, but yes, it's right.
Yeah, it's your,
Yep.
you know, you have, basically, this area is what was, and then you're adding this path, potentially, if all the funds come in
Yep.
around here. And then this is all gonna be chips and
Chips.
drainage, right?
Yep.
So this, all the drainage and site work that she talks about is all through here
Yep.
in this area. So.
And that, the large path that you see there is existing. So,
Which-
this-
On the east
this
side?
part right here is existing,
Oh, path.
and
okay.
then, I'm sorry, yeah.
The Worcester accent.
Yeah, that accent comes out, I'm sorry.
And you, on one of the first slides, you saw these kids with the wall
Yeah,
balls. And
Wall
here's the new wall ball.
Isn't that your
There we go.
sport, Patty?
absolutely, I can't
That's what
wait.
We've heard.
I can't wait.
Okay.
So then the second part would be the site preparation, because we've already done that purchasing basically of the equipment. So the site preparation, today, we have an RFP that's posted, and we will award a bid hopefully on the 29th of April. And because, of course, this is the season when we need to hire somebody to do this work, and those people start to take on projects, and then there aren't people left to be able to do the projects. So we have to do it in a pretty timely manner. So I'm going to talk about this idea that the award bid for our grant is going to be on July 1st. And so the grant money can't be released until after July 1st, and it has to be when the project is done, because someone will come in, they'll inspect the project, make sure everything's done, and that's when the award for the grant that we received will be bid. And I'm going to talk about that grant in just a minute. It's kind of a little backwards here. But the cost of the site work is approximately $80,000 for the drainage, the path, and everything that goes with it. And that number is really fluid. Like, you know, we're not 100% certain until we kind of go out and see what's out there. Wood chips would be about $10,000.
And that's sort of like a phased total value.
Exactly.
You don't
So-
need to do the 80 in order to put the playground in.
Right. So what we need to do is probably more around $20,000, and we have that money available to us right now. So we could do this project as far as putting together what exists right now and recreate that, basically recreate that structure, and we have the funds to be able to do that in hand. And then we're gonna start demolition as soon as school's out, so probably that next week, which would be like around June 22nd. And Dave Kelly and volunteers are going to take the entire thing down for no cost. That's pretty nice, huh?
What is going to happen to all of the structures that are there?
There are a couple people who have asked us whether or not they can take those items, so I think that we're gonna have to figure out who those people are and then probably come to you and ask you whether or not you want us to give it away or pay for it. Yeah, I know, I'm not sure, so that's, I don't think that's up to us to make that determination, so once we know and we take it all down, then I think Dave can better say, well, maybe, I don't know exactly what.
It has to be just dumped. That can't be.
I would assume all that wood has to be dumped, or like 80% of it. I mean, I don't want to make a statement, but there's a lot of timbers there that need work, so I would suggest that we throw them away. Part of it also is, so the grant that we asked for, which again, I'll talk about in just a second, but Lisa and Barb and the committee got pretty excited to see this as a real community playground. And to just limit it to the structure itself was, the group just really wanted to kind of have something where we could have, foods, we could sell food during soccer games and during lacrosse games and things of that nature, and we could really make it a robust area. We could also have an outdoor classroom environment. We use an outdoor classroom environment right now, but there's no weather protection for it, so we thought that this might be an add-on to this playground that would make it a little bit more park-like and just better able to be utilized by everybody in the community. So that's what you see there. That would be a possible structure, kind of a mid-range price.
But that's not designed yet. We're not.
We have not
ordering
purchased that yet.
Okay.
That has not been purchased. So I think if we go to the next slide, you'll see that this would be 18.5 delivered, and that wouldn't be with installation. Maybe we could do a volunteer install for that. The particular one that was 18.5 is a 20 by 30, but again, depending upon fundraising efforts, it could be that we cut that down to a smaller size. And we do obviously have to have a cement pad, and the cement pad is part of that site work that I just talked about. So when that figure looked kind of big, it's because part of it is the cement that would be under the pavilion. So two of the add-ons or the enhancements to the whole idea of the back of the property would be a fitness trail, and that would be more on the perimeter of the land. And some natural elements. So those would be boulders and timbers, an elevated sand area that would be more, for kids to do some exploration, play exploration. So the budget portion that would support that, wall ball is, as you can see, $5,000. The fitness trail would be between about $5,000 to $10,000. Again, that's dependent upon how much money you have, because you can put in 5 fitness stops, you can put in 10 fitness stops, whatever you decide to put along the way. But this is actually going to be funded through a VHI grant and a Fit and Healthy Kids grant, some money that that we can use for such a trail. Trees and shrubs, and we have boulders that we're going to purchase. That'll be paid for by those residual PTO funds. And we have been working with Betsy Saplicki from the town to be able to collect some boulders from a site in Charlotte, and we're bringing the boulders all to our school and probably putting them on the back side of the school so that we can split them, so she can have some boulders and we can have some boulders. So the grant that I was talking about. So Lisa and Barb wrote a grant for the Land Water Conservation Fund and were awarded $60,000, which is an absolutely unbelievable amount of money. So congratulations to them. It's targeted basically for site work. That was the original intent. And so what the rest of this basically says is you have this grant, but the way the grant works is it will be awarded after, we've heard that we got the grant, but it will actually be awarded after July 1st, so that's when the funding can be kind of released. And it's contingent upon completion of the project, which we anticipate, obviously, it's got to be completed by the first day of school, so, you know, sometime before the first day of school of next year. But there's a need for you to be able to basically say that in the event that the federal government reneged on their ability to pay that we would potentially be responsible for a payment. We don't think that would ever happen. How would the federal government do that? But again, it is a, you know, something that we just want to make sure you're aware of that.
Because we have we've
That
committed-
period of time is.
Right, so we have $106,000 that we have, and then
Mhm.
$60,000 from the grant.
Mhm. Plus additional that I'll show you in a minute. So
Okay,
we've got
so-
a good 30,000.
So the way to get that 60,000 back is we have to pay for those improvements, and then we'll be reimbursed back for
Correct.
them.
Correct.
So
That's
okay.
why the project has to be completed in order to get that money.
Got it.
So we just want to make you aware of that. And then also Barb applied for another grant from the Vermont Urban and Community Forestry Program. And it's $5,000, and it's for care and maintenance of trees and shrubs and fertilizing and staking trees and that kind of thing. So hopefully we'll get that too. So additional fundraising to date, we have $17,000 that have been committed from Ben & Jerry's, CHIPS, and local families. And unofficially, we also have people who have told us that they would provide us with donations, in-kind donations, and whatnot, for a total of about $25,000, which leaves us with about $50,000 left to fundraise. So as we look at fundraising, we have a youcaring.com website. We'd suggest everybody go to it and contribute to this project. Right now there's 85. I think there's actually 88 in it, but as of last count. We've sent home parent fundraising letters, talked about it at PTO tonight. Backpack stuffers have gone out, and it is National Playground Safety Month, so we've been trying to really put a push on for fundraising this month. As I said before, the site work bids will be opened, where the Lisa and Barb and a couple of the committee members are going to have some small group sessions that they invite people in to just talk about the playground in general and additional grants and whatnot, just to get the word out to everybody and hopefully have some more monetary commitments. Yeah.
Is there electric and lighting out in this playground area?
That's a great question. So we have actually talked to Brian Kilkelly, who does solar lighting, and we've talked about the possibility of a solar lighting project, but also I think right now the group has decided they're going to put some kind of conduit in and bring some electricity out there. Now, exactly what that's going to look like, Bob, I'm not 100% certain, but I think the idea is that it would really prevent usage if we don't have some kind of, electricity out there, so we had some kind of lighting. They had also spoken about water, the possibility of putting some kind of water out there. But again, not knowing the costs, I think we would wait until we did the site work and then, ask the contractor what that might cost at that point in time.
There's no fountain out there now?
There is not a fountain out there. There's no water source out there. So I am going to pass out, not this presentation, but it's got a lot of parts to this presentation, and it is what Lisa and Barb have been giving to people as they're doing their fundraising efforts. And it doesn't have all the numbers in it. I'm happy to ship you a copy of this PowerPoint if you would like it.
Yeah, I did get the note back in one of my kids' backpacks with the
You got the note?
fundraiser letter.
Good.
Mine had a
Awesome.
little note on it. It was
Awesome.
nice touch.
Awesome.
So it was good. That's great. I mean, that's
Yep.
only been about a week and a half. So who was?
There's another question in the audience.
Yeah.
Can you ask questions to?
Yeah, well, technically no, but we'd like you guys.
I just, if you're doing lighting, you typically need a planning and zoning permit, so but you could
Yeah.
put your
Yeah.
conduit in first. and-
Thank you. Yeah. I know Lisa's on top of all of
Okay.
her permits, so, but thank you. Yes, I appreciate that. I will remind her.
And there's no risk of violating the terms of the grant by ordering $101,000 of stuff prior to 7/1?
No, because the grant just needs matching funds of 60,000, and it will be matching funds of 60,000. If they
Okay.
give us 60, it just means we need to have another 60, and the 5,000 plus the additional monies would be okay. Because it's 101 is the total of the amount that Patnelli needs.
The pro bono work
Counts, right.
towards the grant.
That's
Okay.
the in-kind, so
Okay.
all of Hodgson's and Dave Marshall's work could potentially.
So that's,
How close do you
part
think
of
we
it.
are to that additional 60 then at this point? I wasn't doing all the math. You said an additional 50 is
So
needed, but it looked like there was
5,000
more.
Yeah,
that we
it's,
had.
that's a soft figure, Kathy, because depending upon what they do, that's the difficulty with this project, is
And
it
that doesn't-
becomes bigger, you know, as they get more money, more things kind of
Get added to it.
to the project. So
Yeah.
that's why it's really, that part's a little bit of a challenge. But I think if you look at the figures, and as I said, I'll send you the PowerPoint so you can do the addition if you'd like, but, I think the 5,000, the pro bono, the 17, if you look at all those figures and add them up, they're pretty close to, they're
Eight-something.
around, yeah, 80, I think it was 89 in the U-Caring. They're pretty close to that.
I think
I think
they need about another 40 grand, what they have. That's what they want to raise.
Right,
To meet
but
that
to,
60.
not to get the 60 though.
No,
We're
To
okay.
match
they're
yeah.
okay on
Right,
60,
we're
but
okay
just
on
to
60.
finish,
Right.
to do what grandiose
Yeah.
plan they have,
Yeah,
they want to raise 40 more by,
It was the,
Yeah.
it was the 60 that I was worried about.
yeah, I'm not worried about the 60,
you're
I'm.
covered on that.
Yeah, and that 40 is important because some of that residual is the difference between, say, a gravelled path around the playground versus a concrete path around the playground or something like that. So, you know, it's important to get that ending monies.
Is anybody going to Ireland for cement donations and that kind of thing, or is
Yeah,
that?
they're on the list.
I think,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, they,
or-
no
all
stone
the
left
points?
No
unturned, let
stone
me
left
assure
unturned,
you.
yeah. No cement mixer left on.
There you go,
Unturned.
there you go. They
So I
have done
think
their homework.
we'll try to come up with a concise summary of this and put it in as a board's corner.
That'd be great, thank
And I'm
you.
fine with writing that and then running it past Lisa and you,
Perfect.
so,
And as I said, I'll send you this PowerPoint so that you have that information.
sound good?
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, thanks for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It's good to see the rocks and trees made it in there as
I
well
know,
as the web climber.
I know.
Remember that was a great conversation. So we'll go to 6.5 and we'll invite Dave Hillman up to the table so we can have a conversation about the facilities committee and next steps on the bond. I did show up for the last facilities committee meeting just to chat with Dave beforehand, and Matt was unable to attend, so I sat in on the meeting because there was only the right
One other board
honorable
person?
Tim Williams there, so we didn't have a quorum, so it was good to be there. Did you print out the minutes or print out? You have something in your hand there.
Minutes, but I did my own little sub-agenda.
Okay.
Just to kind of, no PowerPoints, I'm not a PowerPoint kind of person. So to start off, I was here about a month ago at the previous board meeting, and we were here kind of doing a little bit of a postmortem on the bond vote and where do we go from here. And so from that discussion, had somewhat of a recharge of the facilities committee to go back and have some discussions on, well, where is the facilities committee with this? What kind of options can you come up with? And then bring those back to the board, and then from that, hopefully get some further direction on how to proceed. So
we had a couple of meetings. Spent one meeting just kind of like just globbing on, okay, what might be good to do, what not, and came up with a bunch of different options, different kind of flavors. And at the end of that meeting, I was kind of like, boy, that's an awful lot of stuff. We didn't really make a lot of product, an awful lot of stuff to chew on there. So at the next meeting, we came back together and culled through that list of things to, yes, let's talk to that extent to the board, or no, we really couldn't get a consensus with that small group that we wanted to proceed with it. So out of that, essentially came up with, for my number one item here, four concepts that we just wanted to bring to the board for further discussion, and whether that's vetted today or it's an offline discussion at some other point with you folks, that's what we wanted to talk about. Option A there is essentially, I think, kind of a reflection of where the committee is really at, in that I don't think we want to throw the towel in and kind of disrupt the flavor of that recent bond vote, in that we still believe in the D and the E wing renovations, and some of the deferred maintenance like the windows and the roof. And it kind of comes back to, when you look at the D and the E renovations, what are we really trying to do there? And those concerns of safety and new methods of education and teaching are still there. They haven't gone away. So we want to try and really, bring that forth again. But this time, let's take a look at that, and let's focus on, some value management. Because if you look at what we're trying to do there, there's probably some options that we could come away from this and essentially deliver the same product, but at a lower cost. And this is just a sub-list of things that we'd want to take a look at. And I'm sure there is much more that we want to look at. Some of those candidates, we'd look at some big ticket items like the fire alarm. That was a big ticket item. Full roof replacement. In that proposal, we call for full roof replacement of the entire facility. Do you really want to consider maybe not putting on a 20-year roof on the trailers? Maybe that's an option to look at, and no, we don't do that. For the 93 edition, there was a proposal from Doran Whittier to do some thermal analysis and maybe reduce the kind of insulation that we put in there, or the amount. And that kind of brought up a further discussion. That was kind of premature for where we were at that point. But Dave Kelly brought up the point that, well, the 93 edition, I think he said, it's pretty watertight. We don't see leaks there. It's focused on the 67 wings. So there's another option. So if you got a roof, yeah, it's 20 years old, but if it's not leaking, maybe that's something that could be, delayed or incorporated in some sort of a 5-year kind of capital plan. So, and what I'm getting at here is not that these would be options that we'd pick, but it needs further investigation to see if there's a smart way of doing that and saving some money. Also in that was a big ticket item for electrical service and feeder replacement for the full building. Is that really required? Another one that really came up, a lot of conversation on this one, and we'd actually talked about one option, it's not here, was just eliminating work in the D wing. And I get the D and the E wings mixed up, but the E wing is the one that connects to the D wing, okay. So we couldn't really buy into that, but maybe we'd want to do the full concept for the E wing with the central corridor, because that's a really good way at hammering down the safety problem. D wing, maybe we could look at maybe some other options that might be a little less scope than the E-wing, but again, something we ought to look at, different way of doing the corridors, arrangements of the classrooms, etc. And as I mentioned before, there's other to be determined things that I think we'd want to get back together with, say, the architect and perhaps other members from the community that have some good ideas that we could focus on, that, we could still do that and do it well, but change the approach with things. And another thing that I I didn't really type here, but I'll get to it when I talk about architectural services, is that if we go through this process, when we come to the time of doing the estimating, I think we've got to be much tighter on that. Even though when I went through the estimate in the early days getting at that, when I looked at kind of the round bottom dollar per square foot, it was reasonable. I think there's a lot of opportunity to tighten that up. There's a lot of large numbers that are there for contingencies and unknowns and soft costs. And so if you can tighten that up and do away with those unknowns, then I think we're going to have some better numbers. So another option that came to the table was debundling the roofing and window initiatives from the full package, because what we seemed to hear was that, yeah, the roofing windows was almost a no-brainer. Community would support that. It was the D and the E wing. So do you say, okay, maybe one approach is you debundle them, and could be different variants for that. If you debundle them, maybe you come to a bond vote and you have two bonds there, one for just the roof and window repair, and the other for the D and the E wing, or maybe look at a different approach with making some of that on the operating 5-year capital window plan. But that's something that we talked about, that maybe we ought to look at if there's any feasible option out there for doing something like that. Another concept was, all right, well, we just, you know what? Board says, you got $8 million bucks. What can you do for that? And I guess that's as good as anything, although typically it's a little backwards. You try and figure out, so what I want to do, what's my scope, and then so what's it going to cost me? But there's nothing wrong with saying, you know, here's your budget, stick to it. What can we do for it? So that's another approach. And finally, another important part they thought was that, you know, in all of this analysis, is there something that we should actually target more towards a sliding, say, 5-year, you know, capital improvements, deferred maintenance plan? So that's another option. So it was kind of those 4 categories of things that we came up that we thought would be viable options for us to pursue. We could look at all of them. You could just say, nope, just focus on that, or some combination thereof. So I don't know if you want to discuss those points now, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think the conversation around the different options of you know, we had that, and I think I almost felt coming out of that, and while you're saying it, it's more like, let's get a cost estimate that helps us make that decision, you know, to the next level. Right. You know, all of this sounds, you know, you got to take all these pieces and put them in the right place and line them up in the right columns. That's one thing that would be great. I really think that C is an offshoot of that, where, all right, guys, remove windows from interior sections, de-scope things in a little bit, perhaps. What can you do for $8 million, say? You know, I don't know how folks here feel about the things that were presented here. I welcome your comments.
Well, I think the survey will help to sort of frame our thinking too.
Yeah, the survey is another part of that. That's true. Yeah.
Because how do we know that an $8 million bond is going to pass? I'm seeing a no over there, you know.
Depends on the committee perceives the thing. If they feel like they're getting their money's worth, for one thing, depending on what you're trying to do. And also, one of the problems I had was, we bond for $8 million, but it comes in a different number. I think we ought to spend just what it costs to do and return the money to the taxpayers.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think I answered that question wrong the first time.
Yeah,
and I learned from that. Yeah.
More of a guarantee that it's just a provision.
Yeah.
That has to actually happen.
Yeah. But I think like these things can all happen sort of in parallel, like getting some of these cost estimates done.
Oh, absolutely.
As part of the process to keep it going, because we still have a timeline that we'd like to hold to, which is, if, you know, we're in April, we're having this conversation, I feel like from the small group with the survey, we could release that in the next few weeks and start getting information for our meeting in May and have continued discussions in May. And then,
What is our timeline? Are we looking for a vote when?
well, I'm walking you through that,
Oh, okay.
okay? So we
Right.
have a conversation in May, and then we continue, you know, I think where we're gonna be is in May or June, we're gonna come to a conclusion of what we wanna propose for the public and get comment on that. Something where we're gonna need to act in September in order to put something on a ballot in November.
Yeah.
And we may have to have a special meeting at some point in the summer in order to do one more meeting. But that's the timeline that we're trying to work this through, which is why I'd love to get some consensus on some of the options here in order to get costs to feed into information and then start preparing a package that we can float past the public.
Well, I mean, I
Different
think,
options.
you know, one of my takeaways from the meeting the other day was that, at least to me, it was clear that this idea of taking a lot of, you know, like doing one wing and not the other, or kind of doing this partial, didn't seem to be palatable to many people. I mean, I think everybody was kind of saying, let's find a way to, you know, do the whole project, but as Dave points out, value engineer it, whether value engineering brings in, you know, looking at, you know, how the aisleways go down, or how we're gonna divide the space, and what's in the maker space and what's not, and looking at, you know, whether it's electrical or alarm or HVAC or roof, and just take all those things and say, you know, we want everything, but we can't afford everything.
So I think if the approach was, okay, you focus on A, because it's really what we'd like to do, all these others are not exclusive of it. You're gonna start getting the information on those, so we'll be able to, you know, I think make some more informed decisions if we thought we were getting in trouble with A. That, you know, you've got some kind of escape pieces there.
I mean, I don't wanna speak for you, Bob, but I mean, obviously, on the first go-around, you know, you weren't in sync with what some of the other board members, but I mean, I think, to your point, I mean, I think you wanted to understand what the value proposition was, and have we really vetted all the options? I mean, I don't think you're opposed to closed classrooms and a new roof. I mean, it's just, you're opposed to having your taxes move up. But if we came back with a plan that was properly vetted with the community, and you thought that it was a good value, I think you would be lockstep with us, right?
Well, I think you said it initially. Let's see what the community thinks, and so we've got to present the community with something that really makes sense to them, that they will support. That's the ultimate goal here, is, you know, what will the community support?
And, you know, I think we also talked about the fact that we weren't far up, you know, from the votes. It was, you know, not a long way between passing and not passing, and I think, you know, that tells me that there is strong community support, probably not enough for that size project, but, you know, scale it down a little bit. You look at what Charlotte did with their school budget, they took 25 grand off it, and they passed it by 11 votes. So they took this.
I didn't know it was that amount.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
I think that goes back to our work at the committee.
But they passed their bond. The budget failed, but the bond passed.
Well, we could have passed a $300,000 bond, no
And
problem.
we still don't
So,
know,
you know,
we still don't know exactly why our bond did not pass. Whether it was the money, whether it was the people knowing what was in the bond, we don't know that fully yet, I don't believe.
Right, and I think the survey will help us that,
Right.
but I mean, we can certainly make some educated assumptions of why it
Yeah.
didn't pass.
Yeah.
And I think we can address those in round
We've
two.
got all kinds of targets out there that we need to do, and that is, you know, make sure that we've got this as tight as possible, but we gotta do a better job with our, quote, sales and marketing, because
Yes.
what I heard was that people just didn't really understand what they were getting, you know, so why are we doing this, or what are we getting for it, and why is it so much?
And
So
we didn't
that's-
engage
that's
the
our job
community
to,
enough. We
to
heard
do that.
over and over and over again. also.
How about a different estimator? I mean, Doran Whittier did this estimate, why don't we get somebody else doing that, or maybe even a different architect?
Well, I think we've got some real pros
Yep.
involved now. That
Well, I want to talk a little bit about that.
Yep.
When we go through that, so anyways, to proceed with this, we're clearly gonna need to have some professional help, architectural services, estimating services. So I just want to talk, kind of in full disclosure, because I think it's important that everything that I've learned through this, everybody on the board understands. And I went through the Doran Whittier estimate in some pretty good detail, and there's some things there that I found that kind of make me wary of, of their estimate and the work, the quality of it, and that if they come back to the table, I think again part of this group's work is going to be to make sure that the numbers are scrubbed and vetted before they come here. A couple of things that I picked out that I think we can all kind of grapple with, and some of you folks that are on the committee will understand that. So one of the estimates came through with $380,000 for installation of sprinklers in the 1967 building. So I'm like sitting in the room, and this was brought up before, there was already sprinklers in that building. So why did you say we needed to add $380,000 worth of sprinklers? And yeah, okay, so they pulled it out of the estimate. Then it was found that the construction cost escalation in that budget, in the spreadsheet, actually didn't total up. Chris Capsalis found that. So that's a fairly glaring error. Now, luckily, those two actually almost canceled themselves out. The $380,000 increased it, but then the $384,000 decreased it, so it's kind of like net neutral. The third one is something that I found actually after the bond vote had failed, and I started going back through the estimate in a little bit more detail so I could understand it. And they had used a square foot cost to come up with the with 11.2 number. And that was actually extrapolated from a different estimate that had been done. They called it the option 2 gut, which I'm not particularly knowledgeable about what that specifically was. They hadn't done an actual estimate for what was proposed. They actually went to this other option 2 gut, used that dollar per square foot, and then extrapolated it to the smaller project. The problem with that is it actually inflated the estimate that we saw by just some real quick calculations. I came up with $730,000. Okay, and why is that? That's because this option 2 gut had stuff in it from the kitchen. There was $400,000 worth of kitchen equipment, kitchen flooring, kitchen demo. Essentially, that whole kitchen project was still in there, and so that added on to the dollar per square foot. And if they had used that option 2 gut, which would have been fine, they should have pulled out all those things that weren't part of it. And so by the time you threw that in there and then added in the escalation costs and the soft cost percentages, was all built on that, it really started to cascade on itself. So we had a false number there. So just that in itself, think of where we are. We just went from 11.2 to what? 10.5 without any work. So that's why I'm saying is that whomever we engage to help us out with this, a really important part of it, and it shouldn't be trivialized, is the cost estimating, because that's what we're making decisions on. And I am actually personally quite disappointed with some of that work that was brought to us. There were other things in there that I'd want to work on. Again, they had soft costs of 25%. Well, what is that? You don't really understand what that is, so I'd like to call for more detail on what that is to make sure that A, we have captured everything, but B, that there's not stuff in there that is not appropriate to be in there. You really want to get an idea of what that is, because anytime you have hidden numbers, you just don't know.
25% is $2.5 million.
Yes.
That's why I failed.
That's,
And that's a number that you don't really know what it is. Soft costs, and they say, well, it's fees and stuff.
Right, they gave us lists, words of what it was,
Right.
insurance and so forth, but no numbers
Typically what you'll
attached
see
to
is,
those.
you know, soft costs are part of it, but you will see. You see
Right.
permitting this much, architectural this much,
Right.
commissioning this much. Where is it? That's
Mhm.
what you wanna know. And that can help you pinpoint whether you got real budget problems or not. So as part of the whole facility options and studying, say for option A, a big part of it's gonna be is working hard at scrubbing and understanding those numbers. And so if we choose to have Doran Whittier, it's a hard one, because, all right, they've got some knowledge base now because of the time invested in here, so for the remaining study piece, does it make sense to go get somebody else? I don't know, but it would make sense if they come to the table that we have a crucial conversation with them.
Yeah, and I think, like, I agree with you that it's a tough balance of all the money and knowledge that they have invested in this project. We don't want to reinvest that
Right.
in another RFP for another architect to go back and learn all about the building again, versus the risk of having some of these cost oversights happen again, which are, you know, I understand using extrapolation factors and things like that. It happens. The light at the end of the tunnel is the fact that you're here finding this, and that perhaps you could help analyze this cost estimate the next time it comes in addition to
Some of the community
you two
members.
guys over here who were very active in going through the roof estimate and the windows estimate and the cost per square foot estimate. And I think, you know, we'll talk about this in 3, but I think that's where your expertise lies, and, you know, the service to the community here, which would be very valuable, is if you could help criticize Doran Whittier at these points and bring him into line and question those things, because that's something where, you know, we're not experts at that. We rely on folks on committees like you folks to help us out with that.
I think one thing that's, you know, a little bit troubling is that, you know, Doran Whittier hired an estimator. I mean, they didn't do
Right.
the estimating in-house. So, I mean, you know, by the time it gets down to us, we're almost 3 times removed.
Right.
You know, and then they're passing it on to
Yep.
people who are not, you know, in the trades.
Yeah.
So it's, and, you know, I mean,
So I think, you know, to your
That's a
point, I
challenge.
think that, you know, with this, it's probably the thing to do is we need some help, Doran Whittier back here, but with, you know, help from the community, myself, I think we're gonna be able to do a good job at making sure the numbers that come here are the numbers.
Yeah.
Because I don't wanna be able to stand up in front of anybody and say, yep, those are good.
but I think, you know, if they are coming back, we need to make sure that they, you know, clearly outline who their team is, you know, on the estimating, and, you know, what are their, you know, who is, and who's doing it, and, you know, we probably need some interaction with them, not just, you
We
know,
do.
having Rob pass it through and say, here's the number.
Yeah, but
I'd sort of like to go back, it's almost a year now that we, you know, I voted to pay Doran Whittier, I don't know, was it
30,000, I think it was.
30. $30,000 or something, to do a needs assessment.
Mhm.
And that's what I thought we were gonna get. And if the needs assessment is done right, there doesn't have to be any sales and marketing. The need will speak to the community for itself. I mean, ultimately, there shouldn't be any need or hype, there shouldn't be any sales or marketing or hype or anything. The need should be, you know, demonstrably clear. The need should speak for itself. The roof is a need. We need to do something about the roof. The extent of it, we don't know yet, but that's clear. There is a compelling case for window replacement. There's a compelling case for sound abatement. safety is probably our greatest need. But, you know, I really think that before we get all caught up in committing ourselves to a huge bundled project, let's break down, you know, what are the needs? And that's really why I reacted last fall. I was expecting to get a needs assessment. I wasn't expecting to get a bundled $11.2 million project. And
So, hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
Bob, we had this conversation, and, you know, there was a meeting that we had on an August morning for 2 hours where we went through all the things that had to be done with the building, and I'm sorry that you missed that meeting. And I'm sorry that they presented 5 different options that we all agreed were too expensive, and then they came back and presented the 11 to us.
Okay.
I don't understand why we keep having to go through this conversation over and over.
Because the needs really, I haven't seen any document that was presented on August 19th that spelled out those needs, or August 16th, or whenever it was. I haven't seen anything that says what the needs assessment was. I did see something about $40 million, and then $21 million, and then finally $11.2 million.
And that whole package goes through all the changes that they proposed based on all the priorities that were in the building. So, I mean, we can go offline and go through those packages over again if you want to, but we're talking about $40 million worth of stuff needs to be done in the building, and we're asking for now 11, maybe 10 and a half of it to be done. I'm getting a little tired of this, of like a broken record and a clock. The clock is useful twice a day. This is not. What are we going to do to get forward and use the information that we have in order to come to a solution?
The needs from the ground up, not from the top down. Not starting from $40 million.
We're not starting from $40 million. We're starting from, look, here's rusty doors. Here's windows that don't even work.
Okay.
Here's classrooms where people can't teach.
What will it cost to fix those?
We have those costs.
Okay.
Let's replace the windows. We've gone through the cost estimates here. Oh, we got a great deal on windows, is what I heard. We can replace the roof for this cost, and that makes sense.
Right.
All right. We've had conversations where somebody's like, well, you know what? Maybe not replacing the roof on the 93 wing we could get away with. Oh, wow, look, we accidentally put a cost estimate in there for the roof on the trailers. We removed this kind of stuff.
Right, but...
The needs assessment was done. What are you missing?
I just think that it's being presented as a bundle, as
It is not being presented as a bundled option. Here are the cost changes that we want to make. We want to look at all of these and look. Here's what we're going to do, Bob. We're going to make a table, all right? Here's the table, all right? Here's $11.2 million, all right? And then we're going to look at this table, which has 2 things. We're going to look at this table that has 4 things. And then maybe we'll get some costs here where we can combine 6 things that have different costs, and maybe ultimately we'll come up with a solution that's less than 11.2.
Right.
But that's what we're trying to do.
Just to back it up a little bit, I don't think that the needs are going to be this clear vision from everybody, because I think people's view of the project, and my needs may be different than what your needs are, Bob, because, it's clear that everybody knows the roof needs to be done. I mean, that's a need. It has to happen. But in terms of the other thing within the project, there was a lot of feedback that came back that said, there's nothing wrong with the classrooms. That's fine. We've taught kids in that school for 50 years. It's fine. And in my opinion, it's not fine. If you've spent time in there in a learning environment, it is not conducive to good learning. But you may go in there and say, it's good enough for me or somebody else. So I think that's why we'll never have a clear, absolute direction on which way the project. So like Dave said, we'll outline what the options are, and then as a board, I think we have to make what the best decision is for our constituency and just say, okay, this is, maybe it's an $8 million project, maybe it's a $5 million project.
Maybe it's doing the roof and the windows and then putting off the wing replacement to another time. I mean, it was the fact that it was an all or nothing, there weren't any options being offered. That's what I objected to.
And I think David clearly pointed out that we will have those options in there.
I appreciate that, and that's absolutely the right way to do it. But, you know, last fall, it was just all or nothing, and
So Bob, we're working forward, we're trying to go forward with this.
I
Okay?
understand, I
The
appreciate
information
that.
came from the past, but it's not conducive to moving forward, to constantly come back and say, you guys did it wrong,
No,
you
I'm
didn't
not-
do the needs assessment,
I'm not.
you know, and I was presented with this all or nothing option. So here we are, Bob, we have many options that we're trying to work with. We even had, last week, we had a Bob Finn option. It was called the Bob Finn option. And we went, and Chris Capsalis actually went through and did a back of the envelope cost estimate and walked people through that wing
Yeah.
to try and see, is there a way we can do the Bob Finn option and make it a conducive learning environment? That came up for debate because of the light and the windows and things like that, you know, but I
That'll
think.
be part of the numbers
Yeah.
that we're
Great,
bringing back.
okay.
Yeah.
That's all I ask. I appreciate that. But I wasn't, I mean, I hadn't heard that. I hadn't heard the results. I don't know the numbers. I mean, but I think that what I was concerned about is that it sounded as though we wanted to get behind a big bundled project, $8 million, and then sell it and hype it. That was my concern.
Well, I mean, I don't think there, for the majority of the people and what we talked about in the facility committee, we think that doing the project in full is the right direction to go. Whether, when it comes down to the money side, whether we think, that'll fly or not, we're gonna make that decision as a board, but we're gonna look at all those options within that.
I think there's some good discussion there, when you talk about needs, that, there's a camp of needs that you can say, yeah, you got some stain on that tile there, you got a roof leak. But there's the softer need that, what do you do about all these school shootings that are happening? There's a real need there. It's not
Absolutely.
you can't put your finger on something physical, but it's a really important thing that we ought to be addressing.
Mhm.
And I think the group felt very charged up that that's important to do, as well as recognizing, the educational opportunities by the reconfiguration of those classrooms. They've worked for 50 years, but
And
we think we can do better.
And I think that you had an excellent point when I was like, all right, so there's the concept of, let's do the doors on every classroom in the central corridor in the E wing, and then we do something else on D wing, but that's much less, you don't compartmentalize all the doors and rooms in that one. And Dave had an excellent point. He's like, that's not gonna solve the problem, because so many of these events happen from within. You're basically saying, we're not gonna protect the D wing, we'll concentrate on the E wing, don't worry about it. So those are the kind of things that this round, we have some external input in order to make better decisions on a cost standpoint.
And I think we're gonna have better options and more options to look at, and that's what it comes down
Look
to.
at it, and I am hoping from the results of the survey, you'll start to see some of that is a real need. The community thinks that's a need.
I'll make a comment, maybe. If Jean and I are at all dealing with this, we will question just about everything as far as, does this need to be done? I grilled your Roberto on for one thing, the sprinkler system, and he readily admitted, no, we just need to, put a few branches in, it won't cost much, and then when you come up with this, it's kind of like, okay, where did this come from? I grilled him on the sprinkler system, I grilled him on other things, why is this being done? What about the lighting? What about the grid work and stuff like this? If we're on, and it helped with this committee, you can be assured that that we will squeeze the nickel to the buffalo, whatever the expression. Because we're looking for the best value we can get out of it, and does everything need to be replaced, et cetera.
You ready?
We won't leave a stone unturned, and you'll probably get sick of us and kick us off, but believe me, we really would like to have it passed. I'd like to see, you know, secure doors and stuff like this, but the 11.2 million did not make sense from how it added up from the bottom up, and that's what you should build it from. And I did not trust the estimation from contacting local contractors. It just did not make sense, I'm sorry.
Yep. So you had a couple other bullets here, and we talked about A.
Yes, but I think, you know, B and C are essentially just wanted to bring up that, you know, that we need help from, you know, from probably architect services to help guide us through all these pieces and kind of do some of the legwork.
Mm.
It's most likely Doran Whittier. I just wanted to point out these problems that we've got here. When it comes to actually doing the estimating, I gotta do some thinking about this, but architects are notoriously bad at, any architects in here? bad at estimating. They're good at making things nice. I don't know whether it would be helpful for us to engage as part of this, a contractor to help with pre-construction services, cost estimating. I could make some calls to see if there's any interest out there, and maybe some, you know, low-cost options or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I'm still thinking about
Are you talking cost analysis of the estimates, or value management and earned value management of the actual construction after?
Or the
You
cost
do the work.
estimator, because Doran Whittier brought in a
Doran Whittier
separate
had
cost
hired a
estimator.
cost estimator.
Right.
So we're gonna have to have that same kind of function. So rather than them hiring this cost estimator, I think they're out of Massachusetts somewhere, is maybe we contact a local contractor to work, you know, there's no commitment here, guys. This is pre-construction services, but we need some help with estimating. And that might be another option that we look at for helping with estimating.
Yeah.
How do you do estimation at the hospital? Do you?
Well, again, it all depends. There's all kinds of different ways, but if you're doing something of a fairly large scale and it's really important to get it right, i.e. you're going to, like, you know, the state for approval and whatever like that, and you want to be like really good on, we actually take two routes. We'll hire a cost estimator, so they do an estimate. Then we hire a contractor, they do an estimate. Then you get in a room, and for every line item, if you're within 2%, no discussion. But if you're outside of that band, what were your assumptions? What were your assumptions? And we talk until we bring them together.
So we already have a cost estimation from Doran Whittier's. So that's
Yes.
done. So you're talking about that other piece that you're
Yep.
perhaps
If I was
going
doing
to
this,
get
I'd
into
say,
the room with.
I'd get in touch with a contractor, you know, within the area that we've got some experience with, maybe a little bit of, you know, interest in the community or something like that to help us do some, you know, high-level pre-construction services cost estimating. And while they're there, they can actually, you know, look at what's been done and kind of, you know, do that same kind of check and balance.
Would you do it, someone who has done school construction? Or
I
does
don't
that
think
not
it's
matter to you?
necessary, really. It's all kind of the same.
How about the kind of mechanical aspect of the project? Because to me, the construction is pretty straightforward.
Yep.
I mean, the things that seem to be getting stickier, the HVAC, the sprinkler, the electrical.
Yep, those are really important. Those subs at the table, and we work with the subs, so you would go and contact.
No, but in terms of if you know, reached out to a contractor with pre-construction services, would they have enough of that trades expertise?
They may,
or
but
would
they
have
may
to
bring on
someone-
a sub as part of that package.
Okay.
And, you know, the effort isn't substantial at this level. You know, you can get a good flavor.
Yeah, I mean, we
Where
use,
things
at
are.
UVM, we do the same thing, we reconcile, we use Vermeulen's as one of our,
Mhm.
Tom Barden, Peter Schmeckel, all those local estimators that help us.
You know, we could say, okay, Vermont Mechanical, we'd like to have you come here and take a look at what we've got for, you know, plumbing, HVAC systems, whatever. They could probably, within a couple of days, you know, this is good, that's low, that's high.
But is that, I guess, are you recommending that as the facilities committee, we go get a Vermont Mechanical, get somebody to do the
Yeah, that's my
interior,
thought. If we're
so
gonna
get
be.
3 or 4 guys?
Right, if I'm gonna come to you folks with a number that's gonna go out to the bond, I would feel more comfortable having had contractor/subcontractor team actually help us develop the estimates.
Based on 1A,
Yeah,
those bullets.
these high-level pieces of
Okay.
scope, this is what we're looking at.
'Cause you have
And
to have
even
a
as you're
scope.
going through it, as we're trying to think of like, you know, well, we're thinking about doing this, what do you think? Does that cost high, low? And they'll, don't go there. Not bad. They can actually help you figure out what is reasonable to stay in, or you should be sensitive about.
So you
doing
get
or
a
not
good
doing.
plumber, a good
Yeah.
electrician,
Yeah,
a
Right.
good interior,
yep,
and then,
And like the roofing, if you don't replace the insulation, a lot of times you don't get your warranty.
right,
You know, you can't say, oh, that insulation's dry, we're gonna keep it. You're not
right.
gonna
That
get
was
your
one of my
warranty.
things that
You have to
I
be careful.
I did not agree with Doran Whittier getting in touch with, Alan or somebody recommending to do that, because it's kind of a waste of money, and I would not recommend not doing the installation just for that fact.
Yeah, you don't.
You just spend all kinds of money, and now you're probably not gonna get a warranty. Who's gonna warranty that?
So how would this work down the road if we hire 3 or 4 different contractors who do estimates on this, and then if you then go to bid?
Yep, keep it all above the board. It's pre-construction services.
They can bid like anyone else.
They can
but
bid like
get no
anybody
special
else, but
treatment.
there's no special treatment.
Okay, but
And
they're
you
not.
get a construction manager who's actually going to probably manage all of those various subs and stay
If you
within
went
the
that route.
estimates.
Okay.
so if you're kind of going that route for estimating, do you then think it would make more sense to use a construction manager than a GC? Just because you've already got a lot of the work done and conceivably, I mean, obviously they want to do the pre-construction because they think it's going to give them some sort of inside track on it,
Perhaps.
which is fine.
Yep.
But would that ultimately probably get you a better
I think so.
number than,
I think so.
certainly would cut down on the overhead and contingencies?
It would. Because they've got in there a 15% design estimating contingency. That means their confidence level is 85%.
Yeah.
So if you can do a better job at estimating, you can bring that down.
Was there any testing done for hazardous materials? I can't remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what order of magnitude is this sort of support from a dollar value if we were gonna move forward with that?
Boy, I'd be afraid to say, but I could make some inquiries, if that's
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
I mean, for the cost of the estimations?
Yeah.
I mean, just from being involved in it from the beginning and having been involved in other projects, I mean, I think that, David, your idea to do it that way is very logical and makes a lot of sense. And I think at the end of the day, you get we'll get a better product. I mean, you just talk about, HVAC. I mean, New England Air just put in our whole new heating system. So, I mean, they're ultimately
They do it all the
familiar
time.
with the whole building.
And the other thing is, they know the local market conditions. The estimator down in Massachusetts
Right.
may not,
So is there a need do we need more assistance from Doran Whittier in conjunction with the estimator? Because we had
That's hard for me, because it's like, I feel like I want to say I'll do it, but I don't have the time to do it. So you
Yeah.
need to have, you should have an architect there. They're at the helm, they should be driving it, but, working for them or us, I'd probably say us, you hire a CM to help out with that cost estimating work, as well as, they're good at keeping the architect in check.
Yeah, I guess what I'd like to see is if Doran Whittier comes back on to support the work until a potential vote, have the construction manager work with them to say like, well, this sort of design is nice, but it's a little bit more than what we can afford. What's the if you took this and this out,
Yeah.
We took these, like, there's a lot of glass panels in that design that I saw, so can we start reducing costs by, saying to the architect, what if we reduce these features? They come up with a quick breakdown, and then the construction manager does the estimate, and is that how we see this thing working for the next couple of
That's one of
months?
the benefits and one of the reasons why you would do CM, because they come on early in it and help you actually through some of that, early design estimating work to help you make better informed decisions.
And they know what makes sense in the way of construction too, whereas.
Is there a reason Doran Whittier wouldn't have recommended this construction manager approach to us? I mean, we do this once every 50 years. They do it every day.
We do it every once every 20.
They
20.
did recommend a construction manager, but during the construction phase, not at this point. They didn't know we were gonna go back for more estimates. So my feeling is they didn't recommend that. And we weren't, they didn't ask us for any money to hire a construction manager.
Well, I mean, the reality, I think the work that Doran Whittier did is really, on the front end, is kind of a lost leader to get to the, what they put in, they didn't make a lot of money on doing this first phase. I mean, their hope is that the project passes and then, it grows at the other end. I mean, I think just to kind of keep it moving forward, my opinion is if David let's build this list of either contractors or subs, whatever you want to call them, and then I think we should go back to Doran Whittier and just say, this is the avenue we want to move forward to try to get our numbers in line. How can you, number one, do you want to support us on this? And then how can you support us on this to make this happen? But I think we should probably, when talking to Dave, see who his go-to guys are on, electrical, plumbing, whoever it is. And if they make sense from your opinion to use them, let's build that team.
Yes.
Go back to Doran Whittier and see what we can do there. I think that makes sense.
Did we approve at one of our last meetings? I remember Doran Whittier saying something about $5,000, but I don't think we voted on that. No.
We didn't.
Okay.
So,
No.
You gotta get a handle on Doran Whittier's fee too, because the way I was told, that they, after the bond goes through, they get together and figure out how many hours it's gonna take to design this project, and then send you a bill, or an estimate. I don't know if you've hired
See,
them already.
I don't know if that's true, because I would think that,
That's what he said before us, and Patty Beaumont was there.
but I think that's kind of assuming that that's presumptuous on their part, because I would think
That's
that
what we
we'd be
said.
going out for an RFP for architectural services
Right.
when you got the bond. I mean,
That's right.
there's gotta be some statute, that's a lot of money. You can't just say here.
Yeah.
Well,
We didn't know.
We don't have any commitment to Doran
Right.
Whittier.
But
Yeah.
but this is wanna be a blank check type of thing, because
Oh, no.
if they had the job and here's your bill type of thing.
No, you do an RFP and you get a fixed price.
Okay? Good.
You can also put in your architectural contract that they must come within 10% of your budget. You could do that. We've done that before, where we have a limited amount of funds and we say, your design
There's your
must
budget
be
designed to it.
this.
Mhm.
And if it isn't, it's on your nickel to beat it down and get it to what it needs to be.
So, maybe just to summarize what I'm hearing is that it would be okay for me to talk with Doran Whittier, but also maybe make some calls to some other CMs to see if they'd be interested in working with Doran Whittier to get us through this option analysis, to package up.
New estimation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Doran Whittier said that they would work at not to exceed $7,000 through November. And technically, at the committee level, you guys can make a decision to do that. But I felt the need to bring it here so that I could get a nod from everyone here that it's okay for David to, and we'll work through Bob to get the right contract in place, but are you folks okay with authorizing the facilities committee to engage Doran Whittier to work with the construction manager? And
Yeah, but I mean, I think the scope of what we were talking about at the last meeting and now with this kind of new idea has changed a little bit. I think, so what they were, I think their part is gonna be less potentially than it was before.
So
Perhaps.
what are you suggesting that they should come back with a different?
Well, no, I think David's gonna talk to them, and then before
Here's where we are, and we can.
before we commit to a dollar amount, let's really figure out what, you know, I mean, they might not be very happy with this approach, which is, you know,
That's okay.
it's fine,
So
but I
are you
mean,
saying we are gonna authorize the facilities committee to do what needs to be done with Doran Whittier? Is that what I just heard you say?
we
what
could,
I
if
thought.
I understand what you said, the committee can, you know, if we're talking about a number around $7,000
Or less?
or less, yeah. The committee could use that money to engage Doran Whittier going forward to November.
And,
Okay.
and leave it
without
up
a
to
board
the,
vote, right?
But
leave it up to
what
the
do we need
discretion
them
of the
by?
committee.
At this point,
At the
at this
table
point, do
are,
we need them?
Hold on.
They have their plans and the.
They have to
licensed
work
to
with
do that.
the construction
To
manager.
go over exactly what the different options will be. I think we do need to.
Yeah, you need them in addition to a CM. The CM's there to help us figure out the costing.
Mhm.
We still need them to help put these options on a piece of paper for the CM, discuss them.
Help the
You gotta
CM
basically have somebody
understand
run
what
the
it is.
show.
One thing in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, we wanna have a vote in November. We wanna float a bond in November. But my question is, I could see doing a bond for the roof and maybe the windows. But the scope of, you know, what we're talking about here is, will we be able to get it done in time in the next couple of meetings to work on it over the summer? I mean, is there enough time to do this whole thing right, to have that ready to do in November? Or should we just be going for a vote, a bond in November to do the roof and maybe the windows? And then the rest of it, you know, really button it up and get it done right.
Bob-
Basically break them into two parts.
Bob Mason, didn't you advise us at one point about the bonds and going for two different bonds or two different bonds in one vote or breaking up the bonds? Did you mention that to us at one point? And if you did, would you restate that to us now and advise us?
what might I have said?
You said don't give them a question.
You,
Oh, I said you can't, it is really, quoting your legal attorney, it is really difficult for boards to put in front of voters optional voting and have it work successfully on the other end.
okay.
I'm not-
Because
And-
the voting process is not friendly to that. The voting process has a box, people say either yes or no, you have an outcome. Conditional outcomes get really messy, he would tell you.
I mean, I think what you're saying, Bob, is there enough time to get everything, if we want to stay on that time frame? Is there enough time to get it done in order to get it on the ballot?
But when do you need the numbers for November
So
ballot?
technically,
We
we
have
would
to
need.
warn it 30 days, that's all.
But excuse me for getting in the middle of the conversation. What's the end game? What are you trying to get done when?
Another bond vote for facilities.
But you wanna
To
build
do-
next
November.
summer. You
To
wanna
do
build next
what,
summer.
when?
Well, That's the question. Do
we don't know
wanna do
what-
the whole thing in November, or do we wanna do the roof in November, and then the, you know, the reconfiguration and the, you know, the whole facilities thing, maybe in.
Because to
in
some extent, we
following
don't know that answer right now. That's why we've got this work to do,
Yeah.
to come up with that.
So we've got, you know, a couple weeks of networking with construction managers, connecting them with Doran Whittier. Couple weeks of having these folks come in that we choose and do some estimates and go through the cost estimates. So we have 5 weeks to our next meeting. So
Okay.
a lot of work could get done in 5 weeks if we get started quickly. And all we need to do is discuss the results of whatever we have at that point in May. And then we meet again in late May, where we can further discuss that and refine what we want to do, while at the same time, you know, the cost estimate and the work that Doran Whittier is laying out is moving in parallel. So you're talking about a lot of work in the next 7 to 8 weeks that can be done to have a lot of information in front of us at the end of May, early June. We do have a meeting in the end of June where we could then,
Business meeting?
we have the business meeting where we could convene and discuss what we want to then present to the town as options. And then that leaves the whole summer for you to write letters to the editor and me to answer them back on Front Porch Forum.
Yeah, but
And
everybody will
then-
be on vacation, nobody will be reading it.
I
so,
know,
you know, that's
so-
the perfect time to,
We'll just have to meet at Bark
do that.
Eaters to do it, so.
You just have to post on Front Page Forum so everybody gets it.
Yeah, so, yeah, because you can still get it when you're in Cape Cod, he doesn't know. So, I think that we have a lot of time to do this.
Okay.
And, you know, it is America, Bob, we still can do.
Absolutely.
And
We'll
I
get
think
the
that,
survey. Might have the survey.
and the survey will run in parallel, we'll have tons of information by the retreat, and we'll have some information by the next May meeting, so.
Data is our friend.
Yeah,
That's good.
It is, and so, you know, what I hear is, you're gonna discuss with Doran Whittier, moving forward with some refinements of the cost estimate with some of these options. You're gonna reach out to some of your contacts, and I think it's effective for you to just email us with your information. We won't reply to all with that information. We'll analyze, and if we have any questions, come back to you. And we'll be back here in 5 weeks, hopefully with more information, but, and there's a facilities committee meeting where we can review the minutes of that in order to get some more updates.
Sounds good.
Is that good?
Yep. Just had one more item.
Yes, there was.
I've got several folks from the community that have volunteered to help out, which is great. I've asked them to all kind of like, you know, thank you, gonna put them on hold because I wanted some input from the board, because I don't want to be viewed as like, say, stacking the deck one way or excluding somebody some other way. So I actually brought this up at the previous committee meeting. We talked about it, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we landed that we didn't want to expand the committee per se, but that these volunteers all have some valuable talents that we can make use of. And that what we can do is, with those talents, ask them to work on specific pieces of this work to help us out. Like, we've got some folks working on the survey, you guys helping out with, you know, design, construction, estimating, whatever, and that, you know, that's the approach we take.
I totally think that's the right way to do it. I think, I like that John Harris is on the facilities committee when he can be there. And I think that, you know, you guys, your role, coming to the individual facilities committee meetings probably isn't totally effective, but I think where you're totally effective is in helping us with reviewing these cost estimates, and like, that's the prototype of how we want community to be involved. And I think that's the right track.
And then there may be some folks, when it comes to getting the word out, they
Yep.
may be useful, some
Yeah.
people that
Right.
I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
good?
great.
Good.
Thank you very much for all your work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now we're on to action matters. So
Are we discussing anything about this survey that you got out to us or not? We don't need any discussion around that?
I don't know. Did anything come out and seem crazy to you, or no?
No, just everybody understands how it's gonna work?
What we're gonna do is, you guys can, I didn't share this with you folks, but you can, so we're gonna have a survey go out, and it's gonna have 3 sets of questions, all based on how you answer the first question. If you voted yes, if you voted no, or if you just didn't vote. And then just trying to ask folks questions through those 3 sets. So a person will answer 10 to 13 questions based on how they answer the first question.
Now, just one question on that. I know when John was putting it together, he was questioning whether we only wanted to go to the no voters. And there seems to be a shift in that. I'm not advocating one way or the other, but.
So I think it's just to get get everyone involved, and I think we wanted to find out also like why people didn't vote. So we had 2 of the 3 in there, so there was no extra cost for the 3rd one. So we thought we'd.
And it's good to hear what we did right, why people voted yes, I think.
Yeah. So we're gonna lay this out in SurveyMonkey with the help of 2 other people, and get that out through Front Porch Forum, and then publicize it in the Shelburne News.
So it'll be a link on
Yeah.
front page forum,
Yep.
front porch.
And when do you hope to get the responses by?
Well, it'll go out there, and I can't imagine it being effective for longer than 2 or 3 weeks. And
So
then,
you're gonna have a respond by date or something for people? Good.
Yep.
Okay.
So how often will it hit
Front Porch
front
Forum.
porch forum?
I'll make it hit every
So
night at 5:30 if
So
I
you're
need it
gonna
to
do
be.
it again and again and again for like a week?
That
Something
would
like
be
that,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Sound good to you?
Sounds great. No, it's an impressive tool.
Yeah.
Can we get it through the school website or anything like that? Or do you have any idea?
Bob
Not
left
so
at the
much?
wrong time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We don't do survey, well, I
Nothing.
don't know, we do our Google survey.
I can ask Bob during our debrief tomorrow.
Any link, I just don't
Right.
know about, yeah.
Maybe that.
We can
maybe
ask
that's
him how
it.
he feels
Something.
about-
Open-ended question
Yeah.
or a link in probably our May newsletter would probably be
That would
more
be a good
appropriate
idea.
than a direct kind of.
You probably can't do it on the emergency phone call number though.
No.
Probably not good. I would like to hear Patty say www.surveymonkey.com/.
See how many people could understand what I said.
This is Patty Bowman. This is Patty Bowman. This is Patty Bowman.
Yeah, but that's a good point. If you'll bring that up to Bob.
Yep, I will tomorrow.
Okay.
I think that would be good, because people lose newspapers and, they go.
But this was great. We had a fundraiser, and then someone with friends who do political polling review the questions.
Great.
Nice.
So that was nice.
Great.
All right. So on to 7.0 action matters. 7.1, we had 2 items. We had a middle level teacher and a job share request. You guys back, obviously the middle level teacher and then job share you're totally good with?
Yep, support them both.
So can I get a motion to approve 7.1.1 and 7.1.2?
So moved.
Second?
Seconded by Tim Williams. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so motions carry for both job share and the middle level teacher.
Thank you.
7.2, you're welcome. Thanks for staying. The last day of school, which I think I heard today changed again, which we're now for Monday the 15th is our last day.
That would be our proposal.
On a Monday?
Well,
Half a day.
here's what we have, is we don't have an option on Monday. Monday is our 175th day, and legally we have to have 175 days. We have 2 snow days. We could do Tuesday. We'd prefer to have it be Monday, be the last day, and have in-service time with the staff for Tuesday and Wednesday. We think
Would you
that's,
do a full day or still just a half day?
we'd do a half day on Monday, I think.
Yeah.
So you just can't end on Friday?
We can't end on Friday. No,
Yeah,
not
so
without a board,
have to go
not without an AOE
175.
waiver that they're not gonna grant.
Okay.
But you can do a half day on Monday and it still counts as that day?
As long as you serve lunch.
Do you have a certain percentage that need to be there in order for it to count? Or you just need to be open?
50%,
Is it?
plus one.
50%
Is
plus
it?
one, wow.
That's,
Did you look
that
at
in
it?
order,
Yeah, I
yeah,
didn't know.
that's in order
correct.
for it to
Yep.
count.
I mean,
So
do you
we're all
think it's
gonna
an
need to go-
issue that, I mean, will you get 50% plus?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. And I guess, you know,
I don't know.
it is
I
what
mean,
it
I would-
is.
I don't think
You
going to
can't-
Tuesday will make it any more
Yeah,
likely that
Palatable,
they're gonna
right.
come to school on Monday.
okay. You look puzzled,
So
Bob.
moved.
Are you looking at something else? You're good?
No, it's
Second.
something else.
All right,
Oh,
can I get a motion to have the last day of school be a half day on Monday, June 15th?
You got it.
We've already.
And I get a second. We knew what you were gonna say.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, could I move to 8.0? Could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Moved, so moved.
Second.
Second by Tim, moved by Kathy, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. So we will meet here again, May 19th.
Question, that's what I'm looking at.
Yep.
That is the third Tuesday in May.
Yep,
Aren't we typically the second Tuesday of the month?
no, we've been the third Tuesday this year.
This is just
But
the
this
second
is a
because
special
of
case
vacation.
because next week is
Next week
We
vacation.
moved, yeah.
Thank you, okay.
Yep,
Okay.
19th.
and then we have our retreat on Monday,
First.
June 1st.
Right.
And I would encourage you all to stay for the afternoon SSU and not go play golf.
Well, it's on Monday, so I'm good.
Oh,
We should
golf.
have it on Friday.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, that's
I
the-
didn't say
that's the
Tim
trick.
Williams,
That's the
please
carrot
say.
right there.
All right,
Making it clear to you.
Can I get a
Don't
motion to
schedule a meeting
adjourn?
On a sunny Friday.
So moved.
second.
No one's gonna second
Okay,
the
we're,
adjournment.
We are adjourned.
We're gonna have to stay.
Thank you.